Welcome back to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to make uranium matter. I've got Andrew Vigar. He is the executive chairman of Terra Uranium. The ASX code is T92. Lots of news coming out of the company at the moment. As you all know, uranium is something that Rick Rule speaks about quite a lot. It's one of his favorite commodities. And in my opinion, zero carbon emissions, it's where we have to go in this new world that we're living in. So I'm pretty excited. Athabasca Basin up in Canada, some of the highest grades of uranium, but I'm not going to take all of his thunder away. Andrew, great to see you. Welcome to Making Money Matter.
Thank you very much for inviting us on, Kerry. Yeah, there's a lot happening in the Athabasca, and there's a lot happening in Terra Uranium and the uranium market in general. We had a really good run up just before Christmas. We were predicting around $100 a pound by Christmas, and we missed that by a couple of weeks. We have seen a pullback in the spot price since then to around the $85 mark, which is where it is at the moment. But that's expected. I mean, that was a very, very big run up. People need to take a breather. But more importantly, I think that the long-term price, which is a very hard thing to actually know because it's all done on private contracts, and is a majority of the market. It's 80 to 90% of the market. The word is that is catching up, and that it's probably around that level or close to. As you mentioned, Rick, he would have a very clear idea on that as well, as a few other insiders do. But it's approaching that same level. And usually when that happens, that means we've got a very, very strong and stable rise in the price. And really, I view this as a bit similar to the 1970s, for those of us who were around then. That was when the major build out of the US and then the French nuclear power stations was happening. And there was a big demand for nuclear fuel. And that's what's happening today. There's no doubt China are manufacturing a plant every 1 or 2 months.
Wow.
Russia's just contracted to build another 11 in India. There's no fuel for any of these. Japanese are going to replace some of their plants. The French are talking about replacing theirs. The English are going to build more. Funnily enough, the only place not doing it is here in Australia. But hopefully
wake up, Australia.
Well, what do you do, Kerry? I mean, it's just mind-boggling. But anyway, do
you know what, Andrew? Sorry to interrupt you, but here's what I think we do. I have more conversations with people like you that have a deep understanding of it. And for those of you that are watching, talk to your friends. It's not the scary berry thing that people think it is. It's actually zero carbon emissions, very clean fuel. And if you fully understand it, those of you that are out there going, my electricity bill's going up, well, start to tell your politicians that you want to get clean uranium, and I don't guarantee it, but I think our electricity bills would come down a bit, wouldn't they, Andrew?
They definitely would. And some of the numbers that are coming out of Canberra as to the cost of nuclear are rubbish. I mean, they're based on made up numbers. They don't include the cost of infrastructure, power, wires, everything else, power lines. I mean, all those have to be added in. Nuclear's compact and doesn't require great swathes of things marching across the countryside. And I think people are realizing they just don't want that. You have to go a different route. But we're talking in general here.
Yes, we are. And I want to get
uranium.
I want to get into T92 because right at the start, this is the first time that you've come onto the channel. You've been very busy with news. Before we get into the latest news, just give us a brief overview of who are T92.
So Terra Uranium, ASX code T92, was listed in September year before last. So we're about 18 months old now. We're a maturing company. Our philosophy was to look for the next large deposits in the Athabasca Basin. We pegged our own ground. We have over 10,000 square kilometres of the Athabasca, which is a huge land holding. And we've brought those projects all up to drill ready status, basically. We introduced the ANT technology into the Athabasca from Australia. That's now been picked up by ISO Energy and others. ISO recently reported that they ran that this ambient noise tomography, a type of seismic, measures a different physical property of the rocks. Everybody's been using electrical and gravity, so this is another technique to layer on top. And ISO Energy have recently reported their results over their Hurricane deposit. So they actually ran it across a known deposit with about 50 million pounds. Great deposit, and it showed it very clearly. So they're now very busy testing other targets that came up with the ANT. And Terra Uranium is I think, the only company in the Athabasca with an ANT defined target ready for drilling. And that's our Passfield project. And we've been out looking for partners for that, and we're still doing that. So that's our core project.
So just let me interrupt you for a second. The ANT technology, is it your technology, or is
No, it came out of Adelaide.
Okay.
It's what they call a passive seismic. So it measures very, very small vibrations in the earth, where you don't need the old seismic needing explosives or something like that to generate a signal. This uses very low frequency signals that are generated by the earth itself, by earthquakes, by storms, by even large waves on the sea can generate enough energy to pick up these things. And very, very sensitive instruments. It was developed originally in Australia. It's been used in oil and gas as well. There are people out of Texas who use it as well. But we were the first ones to introduce it to the Athabasca, and it's been proven now.
Okay.
So and I think it'll be a big game changer.
In terms of what Terra Uranium have been doing, as you said just a moment ago, you listed 18 months ago, you're up in the Athabasca. First of all, why the Athabasca? That's the first part, but also 10,000 square kilometers. That's a massive land holding. How do you manage something like that? So why Athabasca, and talk to us about what you've got.
Yeah, so we've got a team on the ground there. We have built a database of all the geology of the, particularly the eastern Athabasca. We target structures, magnetic features. We have all the old data, which is they have a good open system there. But particularly, we were targeting when we first started the company, there were two types of deposits in our view that were worth chasing. One is the bulk low grade type deposits, such as those in Namibia and Kazakhstan, and then the smaller high grade deposits. And now they're different ends of the spectrum, but they're the two types of deposits that make good money and can have operating costs around that $30-40 a pound, which is where we're looking for. And I should say that although we've been focused on the Athabasca, we did announce recently that we picked up another project. That was really to something that we could work on at shallower depths and was more at the other end of the spectrum, which is this bulk low grade end. We've picked up this project further north in Canada. It's not in the Athabasca. It's on the edge of the Thelon Basin and the Baker Lake region, but it has a defined resource, and we've recently put an announcement about that.
Okay, so talk to us about that. That's Amer Lake, which you've literally just announced, I think, today. So when I was looking at Terra Uranium, what I saw was very much a focus on Athabasca. I just said before, you've got a lot of land there. So why the optionality of Amer Lake? It's still in Canada, but it is a different type of deposit.
It is a different type, but of course we have expertise in uranium across the whole spectrum. Okay. And as I said, our view was that the types of deposits to look for are the small high grade ones like the Athabasca or the bulk low grade ones. This one came to our attention. It was available. We managed to sign a binding LOI with the current owner, so it will come to us 100%. But more importantly, it's a project that's had 45 years of work done on it, has been drilled out with both diamond and RC drilling, and has a Canadian standard NI 43101 classified resource in the inferred category of 15.3 million pounds. So that's a significant deposit, and from what we could see, there's significant upside to that. It's very shallow. It outcrops. It's down to about 150 meters depth, so it's open pittable or ISR, and it's a bulk deposit. We can see that could potentially be a very profitable project and enough size that we can grow that. So there are other prospects along strike that haven't been tested yet, either under shallow cover, and we'll look to expand that footprint and gradually grow that resource. First job though is to bring it up to JORC. So it's currently classed as a foreign estimate because Canada's foreign to Australia. But it is full Canadian compliant as of 2012, which wasn't that long ago.
Sorry to Andrew, but why, if this project's is so good and potentially so profitable, why did they want to get rid of it?
It was held by a private company, and basically they were looking at what they could do with it. and they like Terra and they like the team, which is understandable.
Oh, of
and
course. Everyone
and
loves
and
Andrew.
and it's coming together. So it's not just a buyout. Some of the people involved in that project will be joining Terra, so it's a way of them developing this project. So they didn't have the funds to do the next round of work, and then to bring it up to full compliance. And then obviously after that, there's a lot of work when you start looking at how you might produce from it.
Now,
So and that's many years away. I should point out we're only at the inferred status, but it's also one of the issues up in that part of the world is you're above the Arctic Circle, so the logistics are a huge issue.
okay.
And this one happens to be within 20 kilometres of an operating gold mine, so there's with all weather, all year round access. So that's very unusual to have something that with reasonable reasonable logistics nearby. And we call it the Baker Lake region because that's the major centre for everything up in the Thelon and up that area. That's the logistics base for that area, and we've got, as I say, access within 20 kilometres.
And power and water and all those sorts of things not that far away either?
Well, they don't belong to us. They belong to the company that operates the gold mine, but the point is that they are there. So
Just get friendly with the gold mine, Andrew. You know how to do that.
I do like gold, as you know, Kerry.
I know. You and I both like gold, but we're talking uranium at the moment, which is actually is I think it's fascinating. What I really need to understand for our community is I think you've got 6 projects in total, but this Amer Lake, it's still in Canada, but as you said before, it's a bulk close to surface. But how do you manage those 2 different operations? Are you going to take on board the people from who had that Amer Lake project and they can manage?
Look, a couple of them will come across to us. But our main technical team in Saskatoon will still run it. I mean, they're geologists with broad experience. I should point out that Mike McClelland and Jennifer Burgess, our exploration manager, have both worked in this area before, looking for diamonds, so they're very familiar with operating in that area. So we won't have a problem operating up there. Whilst, as I said earlier, our main focus remains on the Athabasca and Passfield. But it's a nice balance. So for a junior, you've got to have a balance, Kerry. You've got to have things happening when one area is not a lot happening. You can be working somewhere else. So it should create a very nice balance.
Can we just go back to the Athabasca Basin? As I said, you've only been listed for 18 months. Because first time on the channel, what have you been doing? What I'm trying to understand is for those people out there that are looking at your company, where are the catalysts for, I guess, shareholder value? What have you done? Where are you going?
Well, what we did was start from grassroots. So I guess a differentiator for us from a lot of our competitors is that we own all our projects 100%.
Right.
And that means that we can look at things like joint ventures. So we can look at other people earning into our projects, which is what we're doing now, to fund the next major step, which is major drilling programs, which cost of the order of $4 to $5 million, because we are deeper in the basin. So we're assembling syndicates or investors who would like to invest directly into those projects. That's a lot to have done in 18 months. So we started with pegging ground, which hadn't been worked sometimes for 30 or 40 years.
Wow.
And did all the modern work that's required. So we flew the electrical VTEM and ZTEM. We did some ground geochemistry. We looked at the old gravity and mag data. We combined it all into an Earth model with the geophysicists. We did drill one hole at Parker just to find out how the depth of basement and the logistics of drilling in that area. And it did show us very, very, very much straight away that these are major targets and they require a major program. And that's why we went down the JV route. So we brought them from nothing as a concept, if you like, up to what we call drill ready status. So these projects are drill ready. They have targets to find. We just need to fund the programs to drill them.
Yeah, exactly. So that was going to be the next question. It's how far down that track are you of finding your dance partner?
Well, we're still talking to various parties. Obviously, we're not able to announce anything yet, but we're still talking. We're happy to talk to new parties if they want to talk to us. We're not hard to find. So please reach out to us. But we are talking with various groups, and it's progressing, but it's slow. These types of negotiations don't happen overnight. These are major commitments from various groups, from large to small. But the prize at the end is large. As I say, that those targets are of the size of a MacArthur or Cigar, 300 to 500 million pounds. These are big targets.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get into as well. These targets are huge. It's something where you do need a partner. So I'm talking to you in March of 2024. Talk to us about your vision for the rest of the year. Let's start with Athabasca, and then we'll go across to your northern project.
Yeah, certainly we would very much like to be drilling on one of our major Athabasca projects, what we call our core projects. We'd like to be drilling. We can drill those in the summer. It is possible. That's the northern summer. We can drill those because they're not under lakes, so they're on sandstone outcrop. So we can drill those. We really need to be moving equipment in within the next month, whilst it's still frozen, ready for the summer.
Right.
To hit that window. So we'd really like to close something within the next month.
So sorry to stop you again, but that visual is you've got to get all the equipment in across the frozen lakes to where they need to go. Is that correct?
You don't have to. You can fly it in by helicopter.
Oh, God.
It's just more expensive.
Just a
but not unusual in the Athabasca. Everything you do in the Athabasca is expensive. Anybody who goes up there coming from Australia will get a hell of a shock. It's nothing like Australia. It's frozen for half the year. Logistics are difficult. There's a lot of lakes and swamps and rivers and things to deal with. It's very different to operating in Australia, and therefore expensive. So any work you do in the Athabasca will probably cost you twice what it costs in Australia. It's just unavoidable.
But the prize is the grade, isn't it? Up there, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Highest grade uranium in the world.
There's nothing else that comes close, and right. It's unusual geology. To find deposits of the size of ones we're talking about, running in the percents. So we don't measure them in ppm, we measure them in percents. There's nowhere else in the world that we find them. There's a lot of debate about why that geology is so unusual, but it definitely is. There's particularly at the base of the basin, the Athabasca Basin, and just into the sandstones is where we get these giant deposits with what we call bonanza grades. So these are 15, 20, 30% grades. It's just about solid uranium, and it's just very unusual.
All right. So talk to us about this latest announcement of the Amer Lake. It's the shallow. It's I think you've got it's an advanced exploration. It's got a resource. You need to bring that up to JORC.
Yep.
You don't need a partner for that, or you do?
No, we don't, and that's the reason we took it on, Kerry.
Right.
As I said, these are projects that we can operate within our own team and our own budgets because they're very shallow. We were looking for some around the Athabasca edge itself, but we couldn't find any as good as this one. And also, as I said, the geology is different. So this is not an Athabasca style deposit. I need to emphasize that.
Yeah.
It's much lower grade, and it's probably more similar to some of the ones in Namibia in Africa.
Okay. So
the reason I say that is that it looks as though it might be amenable to upgrading, or what we call beneficiation, which is a completely different end of the spectrum. But it's where you can reduce your costs substantially by upgrading the ore before you treat it. It's another whole topic, but these are a disseminated low-grade deposit, but very shallow. So we're talking either open cut or possibly ISR. We don't know if it's amenable to ISR.
Okay.
But we will see.
All right. Well, we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that people understand that Amer Lake is a good acquisition for Terra Uranium going forward. There's
very much so.
There's going to be a lot of news coming forward, but what would you say to people out there that are possibly looking at Terra Uranium for the first time and thinking, well, okay, first of all, I think Andrew kind of knows his stuff around the uranium industry, which you do. Good team. I think that the acquisition of Amer Lake is very, very interesting just because it's that bulk, shallow. You can get that underway almost quicker than the Athabasca. But give us 3 reasons why people should sit up and take notice right now?
Well, I think that as you said, that the acquisition of Amer Lake, because it gives us in the parlance, it gives us pounds in the ground. So we've got a resource, we've got an advanced exploration project, puts us in a completely different league to most explorers. Secondly, we've got our core targets in the Athabasca. We are confident that we will make a major discovery there, and that we're well advanced in trying to find partners to drill those. That discovery is a whole nother leap above everything else, but something that we need partners for.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing is a more general one, which is that the uranium market is now proving itself not to be a spike. This current rise is stabilizing. We've had a pullback. In my view, it will stay around these levels or higher for years, not months. And that will feed through to the market, and it takes a while for people to warm up to the fact that this market is here to stay, and that it will be bringing new production on, and therefore people like us are worth investing in.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Vigar, we know you know your stuff when it comes to uranium. Watch this space, ladies and gentlemen, because right now this pullback in the uranium price and a little bit of people saying, oh, they're not quite sure, that Rick Raw would say that's the time to take a really good hard look. But as always, do your own research or reach out and give Andrew a call. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. But for now, Andrew Vigar, thank you so much for joining me on Making Money Matter.
Thank you, Kerry.